You are tuning in to the Human Side of Engineering and Product Development podcast, brought to you by Ceratec, where we bring you industry leaders and some of the brightest minds in engineering solutions and product development. I'm Andy Dio, your host. Join me as we discover the inspiring stories of the people behind the most innovative and game-changing solutions in the market today. So tune in and enjoy. Good morning, Saeed, and welcome to our podcast.
Good morning. Good morning, Andy. Thank you for inviting me.
How are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm doing well for Friday.
So I've been excited to talk to you. You have a very interesting story, and your family is amazing. Your family is like the who's of, the world. Your father was a professor at University of North Carolina, right? And yes. Your brother is an ENT surgeon, and then you have another brother who's a neurologist. So coming from such, and you are literally a rocket scientist. You have a PhD in structural engineering and optimization from Duke. You have tons of degrees from Purdue in mechanical and civil engineering. So was there a lot of pressure on you growing up in such an accomplished family to get into engineering? How did you get into engineering?
Well, I knew I wanted to be an engineer from a very early age. I remember in sixth grade that I started building model airplanes, balsa wood, and my parents were very supportive. I think they didn't pressure me as much as they supported me, they helped me. They nurtured my goals and ambitions, and they supported in those directions. And I think that's really was a key to it, was their nurturing as opposed to their pushing. My mom was also an instructor over at University of North Carolina too. So I think we had just good role models. They really showed us the power of education. They showed us the thrill of being good and driving your own self as opposed to them pushing us to be somebody. We pushed ourselves to be somebody. Now, you're right about my degree in engineering, and I know my brothers may listen to this, so it's unfortunate they couldn't be engineers. They ended up being doctors. I always tease them about that.
Yeah. I'm sure they're doing okay.
No, we have
some of them, because they're doctors, they may still be paying off student loans right now. They can apply for the student loan forgiveness program.
That's right. One thing I wanted to say about my dad too, since you asked about that, was that he grew up in Iran, and his father died when he was like 12 or 13, and he ended up being the head of household. He was the oldest amongst about 7 kids, and he had a huge value for education at a very young age, and tried to encourage his siblings to do the same. Some did, some didn't, but he's really a self-made man. He grew that family, his father's family. His mom, back in Iran in those days, there wasn't a whole lot of Social Security or things like that to help families like that. So he was really the guy. And then he did so well that at an early age, his mid-20s, he landed with a scholarship coming to the United States and got his PhD. And he when he passed away 5 years ago, he did so very accomplished, both family as well as education, as well as financially, everything. So truly a great story for him.
I think he did an amazing job to be head of the household at that young an age, and know and to be driven. And he has obviously very successful children. So yeah, absolutely. I think your father was an amazing man, and your whole family is amazing, actually.
Yeah.
So pretty
Well,
cool. I mean,
thank
pretty
you.
cool.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
Good.
you and your brothers, did you guys ever think about, hey, we're pretty smart guys. We know what we're doing. Why don't we start a company together? Did you ever think about something like that?
Well, I don't remember ever having a conversation with them saying we're pretty smart guys. I think most of the conversations we ever had were, the way brothers have. I mean, we there was a lot of love in our family. We loved each other tremendously and supported each other. But we also were brothers, and we goofed off and did
Sure.
crazy things the way
Sure.
brothers do. And but yeah, I mean, we had probably as many conversations of let's go start a business as any family or any group of kids would have. I mean, I actually my first business was actually when I was a sophomore, I think, in high school,
Okay.
in college, and where I had a little construction
Really?
company,
Wow.
and it was really more of a handyman
Yeah.
kind of a company. And there, I didn't have a contractor's license, so I probably shouldn't say construction company. It was more of a handyman. So I ended up going around the neighborhood helping people fix things. And I developed a very good reputation of being able to fix things that were very difficult to fix, and people weren't able to fix them. Like I remember this one lady had a built-in grill, and the hood of her grill was broken. That one of the hinges were, and so she wanted me to research removing that grill, buying her a brand new grill, and installing it. And this was, probably at that time,
Yeah.
$1,000,
Yeah.
which was a lot of money back in that day. And I took a look at it. And I said, well, I think I can fix this. She goes, fix it? How are you going to fix it? And so I said, if I can fix it for you, how about a flat fee of $50? And she goes, if you can fix this for $50, do it. And I just found another meaty location to drill a hole and tap it and put a screw in. And I did that. And, half hour later, an hour later, I had the thing fixed. And she looked at it. She pulled out $50 and gave it to me and said, I got a bunch more things I want you to do. But she was ready to spend $1,000 to go do that. So I had all sorts of things like that, where one guy, his roof was like drooping and falling. And his name was, you probably shouldn't say his name, but he was a very nice, he was a community doctor in our community. And I said, hey, how about if I fix this roof for you? And he said, well, how are you going to do that? And I said, well, I can do it. It'll probably take me about, half a day labor to do it. And he goes, if you can do it, have at it. So what I ended up doing was I got my car jack and I jacked up that corner of his roof, reset the 4x4 that he'd actually backed a truck into and knocked the 4x4 out. So I jacked up his roof, reset the 4x4 where it ought to go. And I'd actually, there were some bricks underneath it he'd busted up too. So I fixed all those and called it a that was really all it took.
I hope you charged him more than $50.
And no, I charged him half a day of labor. I don't remember what it was at the time, but it was like he came out, I knocked the door and he came back out to see if I had any questions or something. And I said, all done. He goes, what? He looked over there. His roof was all good. So I had a lot of little things like that I did. I really enjoyed it. I built people porches and I did some concrete. I mean, there weren't all jobs like that. There were a lot of them I actually lost my shirt on, but most of them were pretty fun. And it was just being creative at a young age and, doing things that surprised and delighted people. And it was fun. It was always fun. And those people always referred me to others. That's I always got jobs. That's the best way,
isn't it? When you have a happy and satisfied customer and they refer you to someone else. Those are always the best customers and the best marketing you can do, actually. So,
Yeah,
So you've always
absolutely.
had an
Absolutely.
interest in fixing, building, making things, and it's natural for you to go into engineering. But you also work at some very high profile company, Boeing, Ford. Um, at some point, you transition from being an engineer, a doer, a maker into management. Did you like that? I mean, it's a natural progression in your career path, but did you prefer that, or did you really love being a builder better?
That's a great question, Andy. That really is a great question. I miss being technical as much as I used to be. As a matter of fact, when some of our staff bring me technical questions, I get
Yeah,
excited. Like, oh, good. Here's
it's
a
your
good one.
nature. Yeah,
and well, unfortunately, I don't remember half the things I used to. So I don't know if I can participate as well. But I really get excited when my team brings me technical things. But it's funny. I started my career on the space shuttle program with Rockwell International, and I stayed technical for the first 10 years, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But I was towards the end of that 10-year period, I was on the vehicle anomaly
uh-huh.
resolution team, where there was issues with the shuttle or something. They weren't able to take off because of
Yeah,
something that happened. I was a structural person that was usually called in, but we had material people, we had system people, we had propulsion people, but I was a structures guy. I absolutely loved it. It was always figuring out,
right.
solving something that nobody knew what was wrong, what happened, how did it happen. The fleet was grounded, or things couldn't happen. So it was always very exciting, and it was it wasn't a 9 to 5 job. I remember doing all nighters
Yeah,
just to make sure that this thing was right and they could get going. So to me that was a thrill. That was very
yeah.
exhilarating. But I when I did my PhD, I did it in optimization. And optimization is if you're doing mathematical programming, it's just a giant loop, and it's about your design versus the analysis, and just going back and forth between design and analysis until you converge upon a solution. Now, in real life, the design problem is what's called multimodal. In other words, you can get a local optimization, but you may not be getting a
I see.
global optimization. And there could be many. It's called many multimodal because it has many different modes, peaks and valleys. Um, but if you take that mathematical programming environment and you now dissect it and put people in the middle of it, it becomes really much slower. Because not that people aren't as fast as
Sure.
computers in a lot of things, but the point is that information needs to flow from person to person, from department to department, from team to team, and that flow of information was always very difficult. Sometimes, I even remember back in the shuttle program, we did a complete analysis with the
Oh
wrong
no.
loads, and we had to go back and get the brand new loads, do that whole
And
analysis
back in
all
those
over
days,
again.
did you have to
So
use,
there,
cards, and you don't have fancy computers like you did today?
yeah, we had a lot of those card readers at the IBM machine. If you guys remember, they go
Yeah.
reading all those cards, and my God, the poor guy that dropped his
Oh,
cards all of a sudden got them all out of order, and yeah, that was my day. And then being able to watch the cursor go up and down the screen. Oh my God, that was like so exciting when you could finally use a monitor, and then you could move the cursor not only horizontally and type things, but you could actually go up and down on your screen. That was, oh my God. So yeah, those were my days.
yeah.
That's the
So
days I grew up.
communication was
But
I mean, to redo something was a
well,
lot of work.
yeah, moving data, making sure that data was accurate, going from place to place. Matter of fact, most people back in those days, you were technical, but you also spent a lot of time being the data manager of a particular area, and you weren't really managing the data per se, but the data was within your domain, and you had to make sure that landing gear strut. you were the guy. And so new loads came in or new things came in, you knew exactly how to handle that landing gear strut. And so that's the way careers evolved a little bit. But now that we have the computer, we removed ourselves from being data managers as much. We're more about the process management and being able to move information from team to team and making sure the information moves fast, accurately, the right data, the right formats, all those things. That now becomes a much bigger challenge. And when I was starting to do this in the early 90s, I developed different methodologies, there's both social dynamics as well as technical dynamics to getting this sort of thing done. And I started mastering both. And because of that, I grew in the management areas, and I quickly was overwhelmed by all the management stuff I was doing. And I slowly was giving up more and more of my technical background and becoming more and more of a manager. And actually, by the time that you met me in year 2000 almost, which was 22 years ago, right? Andy, almost exactly to the day, because I joined AES leaving Boeing in late 2000, year two, or was it late? No, late 1999.
I remember.
It was late 99. And so it's 23 years. So, because right now it's late 2022. So it's been a while. But anyway, when I left Boeing and joined AES, at that time I was probably still somewhat technical, but I'd given up a lot of my technical. I was mainly in management, and joined AES, as you remember, as the VP of engineering, and then later for Ford and stuff. So, and then in evolving Ceratec, it's just been mainly an entrepreneur person and growing the team and developing a team. And most teams don't like to be, quote, micromanaged. And part of micromanaging is not demonstrating you have the answer. You have to let people come up with their own answer. And I think that being able to hold your tongue and let people come up with their own answers is quite often a difficult thing to do, but you have to do that if you want people to feel empowered.
For sure. Now let's go back to something that you said just a few seconds ago. And I think it's a great story, and I often talk to people about it. Can you tell us your story of when you decided to leave Ford and came back to California to start Ceratec, and what was the genesis of all that? What was behind that story? What was the why that pushed you to leave a nice high paying job with a prestigious company to go and venture something out on your own?
Another great question. So when I'm living in Southern California, as you do, and Ford Motor Company was courting me to go to Michigan. By the way, I loved Michigan. I loved my time there, and really enjoyed the Ford Motor Company a lot. I've been so lucky. Every place I've gone, I've really loved the people I've been with and enjoyed it. And I think it's part of the reason people can be successful is if you really find a way to enjoy what you're doing, both what you're doing and with the people you're doing it. Your career is going to be much better than if you're constantly complaining about things and complaining about people. So I find delivering that positivity is also an important, finding the positivity and sticking with the positive stories. But anyway, when I was being courted by Ford, I actually kept saying no. I was not going to go to Ford, and the people that were interviewing me and courting me, they kept making the offer richer and richer, to a point where my sign-on bonus was huge, my salary was great,
made you an offer you couldn't refuse.
And there you go, took the words out of my mouth. but it was interesting because my wife and I kept saying, no, we're not going to go do this. But and I had actually back when I was with MSC, I had actually started Ceratec in concept, but did not start the company. I actually incorporated in 2002, which was the same year that I went to Ford. So we already had the plans to kind of begin this company, and then I just put that whole plan on hold. I kept the corporate, I kept the corporation, and just let it, let it ride. And then I went to Ford. Ford was fantastic, great company, great people. But my very first day that I was there, the executive who had hired me said, "You have to lay off 10 people today." And I hadn't even seen my office yet, and it was very tough to hear that, and then it was very tough to continuously be. I mean, when Ford started negotiating with me, they weren't in this layoff mode. It took several months before I agreed, and then when I finally got to Ford and started, they were at the beginning of these layoffs, and they had even had stopped 401k matching at the time. They'd stopped a lot of their benefits, and so I was there for 3 years, and at 3 years, I think we ended up laying off about half my team, and it was just very painful, and I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't bring any of the knowledge that I had to that organization, unfortunately. So really, what Ford had intended for me, it just never really materialized. And so I was commuting, by the way, because when I told my wife about these layoffs were happening, she goes, "Well, is it okay for me to resign my job here at Boeing and come to Detroit?"
Risky.
And at that time, prior to me joining, they were planning on hiring my wife as well. But after I started, they were having a tough time finding funds to hire her, and they were going through all these layoffs. And I don't blame them; they shouldn't have been hiring. And so I ended up just commuting. I told my wife not to resign, to stay where she's at. So I was commuting between Detroit and LA. It was a very tough commute. Door to door, it was about 8 hours, and I did it every single weekend. And I would fly home on Friday night, and I would generally leave on Sunday night, and I would take the red eye, land on a Monday, and then be a little groggy on Monday, but the rest of the week was fine. But at the time I started this, my daughter Sarah was about 7 years old, and by the time she was 9, she had enough of it, and she said, "Dad, I need you to stay home. You cannot keep going." And by the way, if I didn't come home one weekend, she was livid.
I think
she was very upset.
Exact words,
she didn't
I
like
asked
me.
Sarah, and her exact words were, "I don't even remember when you lived here anymore."
That's right. She mentioned that to me as well, and so that was a shocker, and so I decided I can't do this anymore, and I wasn't bringing my family to Dearborn, and I couldn't do the commute anymore. So I actually gave Ford like 3 months notice. Luckily, they found somebody within about a month, and so I came out and put all my energies into Ceratec.
So and I
which, by the way, the name Ceratec became Ceratec after I came back. I'd incorporated it as Pydophore Industries Inc. So that's the corporate name, but I DBA'd it Ceratec in honor of my daughter and her influence.
I think that's an amazing story, and I love it that I'm a part of that story. Sort of. Well, I actually designed the logo, so part of Ceratec, has my fingerprints on it.
Actually, you got her business card that said president, remember?
Yeah, I remember when Sarah was that age too. She was a great kid. I mean, she's not a kid anymore.
Yeah,
She's a young woman
yeah.
now.
I still think of her as a kid.
Of
I
course,
think
as
of
a
her as a
parent,
kid still. She's
yeah,
my
as a
kid.
parent, you always do. I mean, I
Yeah,
go
that's
talk to
true.
my mom, and I'm in my 50s,
Yeah.
and my mom's like, I still see
And
you
she
as the
calls you,
kid.
she calls you your kid.
You
That's
will
right.
forever be a child to your parents. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
No,
That's right.
that's an amazing story, and I love that story. I
Yeah.
I don't go into depth like you did, but I always tell people, the how Stereotech got started is an amazing story. Here's a very successful man who, works for a very prestigious company, gave everything up and want to be with his family, with his daughter. And I think that's what it's all about, right? If you look at
Oh,
everything
yeah.
that we do it for our family. We do it not just for ourselves. That's what the
Yeah.
payoff is, I think.
Absolutely right. Well, I think even if you look at a lot of Ceratech itself, I think we try to we try very hard at least, and we don't always succeed, but we try to make sure we have a good work-life balance even within the company. Employees hopefully are able to manage their personal lives well, and also grow in their career with Ceratech. And so I think it's probably one of the founding principles of the
No,
company.
I think that's very true and very important. Especially in today's environment where, everything is blowing up, everything's an emergency, there's noises everywhere, on the news, on a social media. I think having a good core group of people who genuinely enjoy working with each other makes a huge difference, in terms of just
Yeah,
company cultures and being productive. So I think that's very
yeah,
key.
yeah. Even when the pandemic hit, I don't know. I think we had such a robust, you know, um, distributed workforce as well as a robust work from home policy that I don't think it wasn't painful for us to go totally remote. It
Yeah.
was very easy. And what's difficult is bringing everybody back to
Right.
the office.
Right, because everybody's used to walking up to the computer in the pajamas.
I know. Even with free lunch, we can't get rid of the office.
That's right. I love the free lunch policy.
Yeah.
It's great. Well, Saeed, it's been a
Yeah.
great conversation. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you, Andy.
joining me today and telling some
Yeah.
great story about getting to know your family,
Yeah.
getting to know the backstory of Ceratag, sharing some of your personal information. I think that's what it's all about, the connection with people. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing those things with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy. And thank you very much for putting this series together. I hope a lot of people get something out of it. It's fun. It was a lot of fun doing it with you. So thank you very much.
Saeed.
All right.